Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpenter, your host, joined by none other than that professional prognosticator, my good friend and co-host, Brandon Noe. Brandon, how you doing today, man?
I'm not doing half bad myself, Mark. How are you doing?
I am doing excellent. I've been going through withdrawal about the last day or so, man. Without being able to watch a game in the last 24 hours, it's been serious withdrawal.
I know. I mean, even though football was on enough to fill the gaps, it still felt like something was missing with playoff baseball, taking this weird little break.
Exactly. I mean, come on, let's face it, dude. Here we are, where it's one of the most exciting times ever, whether you like the brackets or not, as far as just being indulged watching baseball game after baseball game. It has been exciting. A lot of good stuff going on. But we'll get in that here in a second. So, man, yeah, it has been unbelievable. And, of course, us living here in Florida, we got a lot of things to look forward to and the things that have come. The Stanley Cup, wow. We just had that. We're looking at two teams here in two different divisions heading toward the World Series. So between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Miami Marlins, it's nothing but excitement.
Yeah, and we even have, for basketball fans out there, even have the Heat in the finals. So it's not a bad time to be a fan in Florida.
I saw that last night. It was so embarrassing to the Lakers. They walked off the floor before the game was over. Anyway, enough about those other sports. Let's talk about the important thing, baseball, right now. So, looking at what happened with the wild card, boys and girls, what we had was a mix of 16 teams. And I'm not going to break down everything about how that wild card worked because I think most of you already know that at this point. We're going to dig into the games that came up to this wild card. And, Brandon, I'd kind of like to take a look first, since we were talking local, take a look at what happened with the American League wild card between the number 1 seed and the number 8 seed, the Tampa Bay Rays and the Blue Jays.
Yeah, that was, selfishly for us, a really fun series because we swept out the Blue Jays, but we kind of talked about it the other day on our special Raise Up show, to where it was sort of like a learning experience more for the Jays, and you could tell that because they didn't look all that great. They made a bunch of errors. Even Ryu, their ace, he didn't do it good. He only lasted an inning and 2/3, giving up 7 runs. And of course, I'm sorry.
No, please. No, go ahead.
Then you have Blake, don't call me Ian Snell. He looked like his Cy Young self from a few years ago, and Glass now, he looked great as well in game 2, and that really just shut the door on the Jays.
It was just outstanding. I love still looking at the Jays because I know they're a young team, and I'm sure we'll see more of them in years to come. And they got a lot of good talent, and it's definitely being, developed there. But like you're saying, the first game we're looking at what was it? So that was a 3-1 game, and the second game was, what was the final score on that?
8-2.
8-2. Wow. So, yeah, they beat him handily. Poor Ryu. I felt bad for him.
Yeah, Ryu didn't last very long, only inning 2/3, and then they just imploded really quickly, which was the even more surprising part.
But, yeah, 1 2/3 innings and resulted in 8 hits and 7 runs. Talk about a real head scratcher. So, Charlie brought in 5 more pitchers for the remainder of the game. And, one of the most interesting things to watch was Randy Rosarina for the Rays. He was like 4 out of 3 at the plate and plus a walk. I think he came in. He brought in 2 runs and an RBI, I think, in that game, too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he's been one of those guys that's been a really nice surprise for the Rays and a pickup that kind of went under the radar, it feels like, at the deadline. And he's a little bit quiet during the regular season. He had his moments where he would really show up, and picked a pretty good time this past week to show up during the wild card.
Well, the Rays are very fortunate to have him, I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Then as we take a look at another wild card was Cleveland and the Yankees. And a lot of people felt like maybe this is a bit of a mismatch. The Yankees being who they are, and Cleveland, of course, you could probably say that with the Yankees, with what some people think about the Rays. But it was pretty good. I mean, that game one's exciting because they had Garrett Cole there. That's always exciting to see what he can do. And then Cleveland Indians with Shane Bieber, who I expected a whole lot more of too. That was an interesting game with the Yankees winning 12-3.
Yeah, game 1 I thought it was going to be a pitcher's duel with Cole and Bieber. And I mean, I was eating dinner and I come back and Yankees are already pulled away and Bieber's gone. I mean, he didn't even last 5 innings, giving up 7 runs. And this is a guy we both thought was going to be the hands-down Cy Young in the AL, and just laid an egg.
Yeah, definitely was scratching my head on that one, too. I mean, and you look at Cole. What? He's in there in 7 innings, and he comes in with 13 strikeouts. I don't say I expected necessarily 13 from Bieber, but I would expect at least 10, and I would not expected the non-performance that we saw from him on Game 1, so that was kind of sad.
Yeah, and the whole Indians pitching staff, to be honest, was very disappointing. I mean, going up against New York, you know you're going to give up runs because of that lineup is ridiculous. It's basically top to bottom. Anybody can kill you. But they gave up not just hits and home runs, but walks as well, which will kill you.
Exactly. And then Game 2, my gosh, Game 2 was completely insane. I mean, there's all kinds of records being set in this short season, even in this postseason. But that was, I said, well, Game 2, New York won 10 to Cleveland was a 9, I believe. And I would say, welcome to the longest 9-inning game in MLB history. 4 hours and 50 minutes playing time. Plus, on top of that, 76 minutes of rain delays. That took that game into like after 1 in the morning. So that was just absolutely crazy nuts too.
Yeah, I mean, I like to stay up late, but staying up past 1 in the morning to watch a baseball game with 2 teams I really don't care for, I didn't really feel like doing, and it didn't help that they delayed the game because of weather.
Oh, gosh.
And then when they start the game, it's pouring down rain. I mean, come on now.
I mean, I know exactly. It was crazy anyway. I mean, talking about, it was very contentious. You know, you're looking like Cleveland busting it at the plate. They started out like with 4 runs in the first inning. Wow, bam, you see this. And of course, rain delays in and out always hurt all these things. You got to talk about momentum, some of that. The Yankees, though, they only came back answering with Giancarlo. He was hitting a homer in the 2nd inning, and then Gio Urshela burst out a grand slam in the 4th. Ouch.
Yeah, and that was so much fun because it's just back and forth, and we have another series later on that we'll talk about that was back and forth as well. But I mean, the weather. One good thing about the weather messing stuff up is it did mess with the starters a little bit, especially Tanaka because they threw him back out there. So that at least one good thing came out of that, so we could see some back and forth action, which was honestly the best part by far of this whole series.
It was indeed, and you know, I think I still have that DVR'd, you know, but it was amazing. I mean, at the top of the 9th was a deciding factor. You know, the Yankees added 2 more runs, and Cleveland just couldn't answer that. I mean, and the save goes to Yankees, Mr. I'm not on suspension in 2020, Aroldis Chapman. You know, he closing out the last 2 innings and allowing Cleveland only 1 run in the 8th. I mean, now what we got coming up? The Yankees and the Rays will be facing off in the preliminary best-of-5 game in the ALDS series.
Yes, and we were talking about it all year, possible rivalries in the playoffs coming up, and we got a big one, 2 big ones actually in the AL, and it's going to be so exciting, and it'll really get the blood going, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you look, too, as far as the recent history as these teams advance and the Rays and the Yankees facing off later today. By the way, I do see that Austin Meadows will be available. This is being recorded for everybody out there on a Monday, October 5th, before the Rays game and the games this evening, so looking forward to that. So anyway, they'll be facing one another, and that's going to be, I believe, Garrett Coe and Blake Snell. And I also see that Austin Meadows will be in the lineup, so that should be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a really exciting series because it's basically, like we said the other day, 2 opposites. You have one team that can put up a ton of runs, and then the other team doesn't give up any runs. So it's like, which one's going to win out?
I'm looking forward to that. And we'll talk about that a little more later. But in looking at one of the other wild cards, the Minnesota Twins and Houston Astros. And Minnesota, they took the AL Central Division this year with a 36 win and 24 loss season. They were the Twins were one of the 2 teams, including A's, that fell behind the Rays in 2nd position in the American League. However, this year's rules elevated the A's to the number 2 seed. The Twins, they took the 3rd seed and were paired with the 6th seed team, their interdivision rival, the beloved Houston Astros. And they faced off in the Twins' home park, Target Field. You look at what happened with that series, and game one started off pretty strong for the Astros with a 4-1 win. Let's see. Trying to think. Let's see the second. The Twins. The Twins pitcher Maeda. I always love watching him pitch anyway when I get the opportunity. He threw the first 5 innings with 2 hits and 5 strikeouts, 3 walks though, and no runs. Houston used only 2 pitchers for the game, leading with Greinke for 4 innings and Valdez for the remaining 5 innings. The loss of the first game fell at the feet of one of my favorite entertaining relief pitchers, Mr. Sergio Romo. He pitched 2/3 of the last inning, facing 6 batters, and surrendered 2 hits, 1 walk, and 3 runs.
Oh, poor Sergio. He was a fan favorite. And, I'll admit, I was rooting for the Twins, even though they haven't won a playoff game in 16 attempts and now 18, which, honestly, can we talk about just, banning the Twins from the playoffs for a little bit until they get their act together?
Gosh,
you can't just luck into one.
It's going to be... If they get back in there, they're still going to be hearing that story next year about how long it's been since they've been having a win in postseason.
Yeah, and besides that, their offense completely disappeared. The only guy that contributed offensively was Nelson Cruz with 2 RBIs, and those came in both games. Everybody else just completely went away. And it's not like Minnesota's pitching staff was horrible. They gave them a shot. They were in every game, really. And it's not like Houston blew them away either. Houston didn't look all that impressive. It was just Minnesota just seemed like they completely disappeared, in my opinion.
Yeah, so again, we say goodbye to the Twins, and the Astros advance in the American League as well. If we take a look at one of the other teams, one of the wild cards in the American League, we look at the Oakland A's and Chicago White Sox. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to that series. Did you have any time with that one, Brandon?
I saw some of it. I saw some of Game 3, of course, because it was the only game on. And it was a pretty exciting game to watch. A little bit of back and forth. But, to me, Oakland kind of just squeaked it out a bit. Their offense wasn't all that great. And Chicago's starters, they weren't all that great as well. Outside of Giolito, who went 7 innings, only gave up 1 earned run with 8 strikeouts. Keuchel, he didn't do all that great. He gave up 3 earned runs in his start. And Oakland, it was really just, from what I observed, is every time they got an opportunity to get guys across the plate, they took advantage of it. Because their on-base percentage it was pretty high at 279, but their batting average was very low at 194. So it was pretty much like every chance they got, they took advantage of.
And that's what it took. I'm not sure where they're going to be with this and how they're going to play out with everything. We can talk about that too, like I said, once we get into the next level. And taking a look at talking about the next level, let's take a look at the National League and the results of the wild card with the Dodgers and Brewers. Okay, right now, everybody looks at the Dodgers and says, okay, look, there they are. There's Mookie. There's everything else. There's this history. And the Brewers, why are they here? Why are they here? They had a regular season under 500. Their record was 29 wins and 31 losses. Dodgers were over 700 with the season, and they had over 43 wins and 17 losses for the season. What does that say? My gosh.
Yeah, and I've been hard on the Brewers this year, saying they've been my biggest disappointment. And I'm one of those people that don't think that doesn't like the expanded playoffs outside of this year. But hey, it is what it is this year. And at least they didn't embarrass themselves, to be honest. They didn't look horrible. They didn't look good either, but you could just tell by watching it that the Dodgers are the better team. Mookie Betts was Mookie Betts. Kershaw was Kershaw. He was completely dominant in his start.
Yeah.
It's just, the Dodgers just overpowered them, in my opinion.
It's, and Christian Yelich just has not been there this year. The expectations we had for him just didn't materialize. And by the way, forgive me for those little Microsoft notifications popping up on my computer. But that's part of the COVID-19 not being in the studio. But yeah, Dodgers and Brewers. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Dodgers, and of course, looking forward to how they do against another wild card winner, the San Diego Padres. And the Slam Diego, exactly. And we're talking here with looking at what they did with the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, this was one of the other games, the best out of three, where they actually did go 3 games.
Yeah, and I'm glad it went. I'm glad it went 3 games. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but this is one I wish could go 7 games because this was a really fun series to watch.
Well, you're looking at 2 really good teams, and there was a lot of back and forth. There was so much talent. I mean, to looking at seeing, our good friend there, Mr. Fernando Tatis Jr., he's looking there at the guy who had to apologize earlier this year for hitting a grand slam. And oh, my gosh. And got grief from that from some people. Most people say, oh, an unwritten rule. No. People who don't know what I'm talking about is earlier this year, he was at bat. It was the 6th inning. He was swinging at a 3-0 and hit the ball. Bam. Made a big, big difference. He actually overran Trout's seasonal home runs. I think at that point, we had like 11 or 12 at that point. But anyway, anytime you get a chance to watch San Diego Padres and see somebody like Fernando Tatis Jr., it's exciting. He gives one of the best and most exciting performances I ever see in baseball.
Yeah, and he shouldn't be apologizing. And the people who should be apologizing, or the only thing he should apologize for is for putting up only 5 RBIs because he was just a monster out there. And I was really impressed by San Diego because they came out and they lost game 1, and then they fell behind early. I believe it was 4-0 after 2.
Yeah.
In game 2. And with a younger team like them that hasn't had any playoff experience, they could have easily folded up. But they came back, cut the lead in half, and then they gave up more runs and were down again. They could have folded it in there. But they battled back again, and they just kept going, and they won the series, so San Diego is going to be a very tough out, and this matchup against the Dodgers, hopefully, if it's half as good as the St. Louis series was, it's going to be a great series.
I'm looking forward to like nobody's business because it is. It's certainly not going to be something where San Diego hands it over to the Dodgers. I know that there's some questions about a couple of the Padres' health, a couple of the pitchers. I think was it Clevenger, but I think he's doing real well now. But to me, looking at this series, I mean, watching Fernando Tatis Jr. do what he does out there at the plate is amazing. During the games, did you see that one where he's catching a ball over to get somebody out at second? The base runner's coming right at him, and he has to leap up to catch the ball, drag his toe, meaning Tatis, drag his toe across second base, and throw all in one motion to first base to get a double play.
Yeah, that's just a ridiculous play. And to do that and not throw the ball away or miss the bag, it's amazing, honestly.
Well, he did what he did. And when we're looking at homers and some of the things that Tatis did during this series, he had 2 homers in one game, and one of those with 3 runs coming home. And during that same game, I believe it was game 2, Will Myers, former Ray, also had 2 homers for the game. Good gravy. And that is just, knock your socks off. It's crazy. And Manny Machado didn't want to be left behind, so he had a homer that game too. But looking at that, I saw a stat on this saying that by having Will Myers and Tatis Jr. both hit 2 home runs, they became the second pair of teammates each to have 2 home runs in the same game since Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig in the 1932 World Series. And I don't know if that meant everything or just postseason, but anyway it goes, that is huge.
That's not bad company to have your names associated with.
Not at all. Not at all. So, Dodgers, you better get ready for your California rival. They're hungry and they're talented and they're seeking a feast, boys and girls. And I don't think it's necessarily a Dodger dog. So we'll see what comes of that. And like I said earlier, one of the challenges, I'm looking at too, Brandon, is the health of a couple of the Padres starters, Clevenger and Lamet. And I think that I'm hearing, at least Clevenger, I think you had some things earlier that he seems to be on the mend.
Yeah, everything that I've seen, it sounds like Clevenger is back. I haven't really seen much on Lamet, to be honest, but it does sound like Clevenger is coming back this series, which is pretty big for the Padres.
I'd certainly agree with that. Well, let's take another move down here and looking across the National League and the Wild Card Series with the Marlins and Chicago Cubs. Woo! Wow. There's another little series that got a little weird with weather. I mean, being in Chicago without a dome. The rain came in and kind of game 2 was postponed and moved from Thursday to Friday because of it. I always hate delays like that, but I mean, especially during postseason. But Don Mattingly really kept his team together. And you're looking at the first game on Wednesday. Let's see, the Marlins won 5-1, and two former Rays there stepped up into the 7th, each with a home run. That was Corey Dickerson. He brought in 2 runners with him, and then Jesus Aguilar. He brought in Starling Marte with him as well with his home run. So the Marlins, put them up to a 5-1 lead. And Starling Marte, I'm not sure how he's doing it because I think he got hit on the wrist with somewhere in this series as he was at bat, and he looked like he was having some difficulty with it. I don't know how that went, and I believe one of their pitchers got hit too. I can't remember who that was. Well, the other thing was game 2, like I said, was postponed from Thursday, moved to Friday. But what was exciting was watching Sixto Sanchez pitch for the Marlins. That man is absolutely amazing. And when you look at that, he threw 16, count them, 16 100-mile-per-hour pitches in 5 innings. Woof. What kind of steel arm is that, man? I mean, it's a rocket arm. Whatever kind of...
that hurts my arm just thinking about it.
Yeah, I walked around hard, for a couple of days thinking, oh, my elbow hurts. But just watching that guy, too. He's amazing, and take a look at Yu Darvish for the Cubs. He pitched 6.2 innings with 6 strikeouts, but then surrendered 5 hits, 2 runs, and 2 errors. And Yu Darvish is a good pitcher. That was just a really bad day for him.
Yeah, he gave the Cubs a good chance to win. It also could have been a bit different because both teams had guys stranded on base, lost opportunities, guys being thrown out at home. And ultimately the Marlins just made less mistakes and cashed in more. And the really surprising thing to me is near the end it got a little testy with guys throwing at each other, yelling at each other. This isn't a series I really expected that from. I expected that Indians, Yankees, maybe, Blue Jays, Rays, yeah, maybe. But not Cubs, Marlins.
No, that was kind of odd. I don't know what that was all about. Well, let's move on into the 8th of the wild cards, and that was the Atlanta Braves and Cincinnati Reds. Trevor Bauer's been talking a hot game for a long time, and he delivered. I mean, what was it? He had like 13 strikeouts the other day?
Yeah, he went 7 2/3. He only had 2 hits, no earned runs, no walks, 12 strikeouts.
And as he walked off the mound, he gave the tomahawk chop. Yeah, and that didn't hold up so well. I mean, it took a few innings later, and all of that changed.
Yeah, I believe it was Freddie Freeman said he can do whatever he wanted. He pitched good, but they ended up getting the win, and he lost. So he got the last laugh.
Freddie definitely did. I saw that. I thought, that's a stand-up way of saying it. It's not saying anything malicious or anything of that nature. I thought, that's good. That's good. So that's pretty much wrapping up with that. So the Braves advanced and the Reds fell back. And now here we are on Monday, October 5th, and it is getting deep. So of those 16 teams, obviously there's only 8 left, and it starts today.
Yeah, and we're starting off hot. I mean, you got 2 series where both teams absolutely hate each other with the Rays, Yankees, and Houston and the A's. Houston's looking for revenge for, whistleblowing from the A's. So, that could get a little testy pretty quickly.
I also saw that headline in the Tampa Bay Tribune where they had Kiermaier saying, they don't like us and we don't like them for the Rays and Yankees. So, oh my gosh.
Just don't do too much talking, though. I mean, you got to back it up at one point.
Yeah. I saw another quote or somewhere. Somebody was talking with Gardner from the Yankees, and he said, "Yeah, we're sharing the same hotel here at the resort, and I saw some of the guys in the hotel, and just kind of waved and said hey, and went my way. I think everybody's going to be okay because we got families here, so I don't think anything's going to happen here at the hotel."
I have thought that is really awkward that You see it a lot in the NHL and NBA playoffs where they're all sharing these hotels and the bubbles. Like, they absolutely hate each other out there on the court, and then they got to go share an elevator to get back to their rooms. It's got to be really awkward after a while.
Well, so we got 5 games, and that's going to be starting today, and I'm real excited about that. And let's see, who else do we have rolling out here today as we launch to the next level? All righty, we got the Astros and the Athletics playing today as well. So that'll be their first game. Then Tuesday, we start looking at some of the National League. We're looking at Marlins and the Braves and the Padres and the Dodgers. And then, of course, the second game for the American League. Any prognostications you want to do on these? Any insights that you want to share with the upcoming games?
Well, of course, on the AL side, you're going to see you might see a little bit of back and forth, even though, at least in the Yankees-Rays series, we've heard them say they kind of want to move on from all that. That was a regular season. This is a postseason we're going to worry about now. Everybody says that, then you actually get in the heat of the game, and, all that goes out the window. Houston, Oakland, I'm expecting some jawing pretty much anyways, because, of course, we saw a fight earlier this year that we talked about a lot. Miami, Atlanta Atlanta dominated Miami's pitching staff this year. They weren't very good, but it's the playoffs. Anything can happen, as we've seen so far. And San Diego, LA, that's probably the series I'm most looking forward to outside of Rays, Yankees, of course, because that's our team. That's going to be a series. That one I might stay up past 1 o'clock to watch if it's good.
Well, an old man like me may have to DVR that and, wake up at 5 a.m. and watch the rest of it. But we'll see. Oh, my gosh. No, it is absolutely insane. I mean, if anybody who's ever been a baseball fan, they got to love this time. They may not like, again, like we were saying earlier, they may not like the way things are set up, but as far as just pure entertainment and enjoyment and watching some great teams and sometimes not so great teams play one another, this has been it. To get this kind of saturation after not having baseball for so long, it is huge.
I mean, it wasn't the prettiest way to getting here, obviously, and even now it's still not the prettiest, but we're getting one heck of a reward for all that we missed over the summer and spring.
Yeah, and just a kind of a note for folks, if you're wondering where some of these games are going to be played and being able to view them, tonight on Monday, October 5th, the American League games, A's and Astros, they'll be in Los Angeles, and that'll be on TBS. Then what else? Oh, yeah, and the Yankees and Rays are at 8 o'clock, and that's San Diego, and that's also going to be on TBS. If we look tomorrow, let's see, I think the Braves and Marlins are going to be on Fox Sports 1. And most of these looking down here, you're going to find TBS and Fox Sports 1 as the places where you can watch these games. There may be 1 or 2 or just on the Major League Baseball Network, but check your listings, and I think you'll be able to find something to watch, something to enjoy over the next few days as we walk or run or lead or race to the World Series. Well, that's it, everybody. An exciting time here in 2020, the craziest season anybody's ever seen with only 60 games, and a very intense schedule. Looking at what's happening here toward the trek to the World Series, minimum time off, if any. Best way to get that is to win 3 of the 5 games that you have to play against your opponent. So we'll see what happens here. Starting off today, again, we're going to be looking at the American League, and I'm going to be watching, of course, our Rays at 8 o'clock tonight, but a lot of other folks who are interested, as well they should be, will be able to watch at 4 o'clock today. They can watch the Astros and the Athletics. So with that, I'd like to bid adieu to everyone. Brandon, you want to share any last thoughts or any words for everybody?
Sorry, Yankee fans, but go Rays.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brandon. Well, thank everybody else for listening. You can always find us on Twitter. You can find Brandon at TheSportsBlitz1, and you can find me at The Baseball Biz on Twitter. So please go ahead and send us anything you like, and we're looking forward to it. We'll probably have a bonus Rays edition of an episode coming up here soon as well. But until then, thank you all very much for joining us, and we look forward to talking with you real soon. Special thanks to X-Take RUX for rocking forward music.